Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. We are coming to you from the greatest country in the world, the great Republic of Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas, to be more specific. If you guys aren't already a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button for us, as well as hitting that bell icon so you guys don't miss an episode in the future. Also, please consider hitting that like button as well. That'll really help us out with the algorithms going forward. If you guys are on the go and want to check us out, as always, you can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music at Truth Defender Podcast. If you love what we do here on the show and you're feeling generous, please consider sharing the show with a friend, family member, colleague. It would really help us out a lot. Just be careful with work because you know how that goes. Questions for myself or our guests, as well as guest or topic recommendations, you can shoot us an email at truthdefender1776@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on social media, we'll have all the links down below in the show notes. Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, Kick, all that good stuff. We'll have a link to the link tree as well moving forward for everybody. Yeah, I hope everybody's having a great Thursday evening. Appreciate everybody stopping by. We got another great guest for you today. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. So today's guest is Mr. Brad Burkholder, an author, poet, and experiencer. In his new book, Where the Spirit Led, Brad shares a lifetime of paranormal encounters, spiritual missions, and soul revelations that connect Mary Magdalene, King Arthur, demons, aliens, and reincarnation. Brad also reveals his past lives as not one, but two legendary poets. He's here to talk about spiritual warfare, karmic cycles, and the coming age we're all a part of. Without further ado, Mr. Brad Burkholder, how you doing, sir?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were kind of talking here before we got rolling live. We were supposed to do this a couple of days ago. We kind of got our wires crossed a little bit, but it's all good. I appreciate you taking the time to reschedule and actually coming back on with us. So appreciate that very much.
Thank you for your patience.
No, it's all good. Yeah, so it's not a big deal. We got everything going. So we're running a little bit late today, but it's all good. We'll settle down here. So obviously we're here to discuss your latest book. Now, have you written other books in the past as well, or is this your first book?
Not other books as such. I've written 2 plays. I've written a novel. I've written several hundred poems. But as far as actual publication, this is my first book.
Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's kind of a leap, I guess. Was that something you were a little hesitant to kind of write about? Did that come naturally for you?
Yeah, a little hesitant. I was a college English professor for many years, and I did wait until I retired to write the book because there was no point in stirring up controversy. This is a book that I've known I would write for many years because once I began this spiritual work, I was told that there was a book and I would write it someday. So I'm happy to say and relieved to say that I have written it. Yeah.
Sure. And I can only imagine it's probably I'm sure like a big having colleagues kind of look down and frown upon, things like this. I can only imagine being in education, things that colleagues might say, or, you don't want to get in trouble. So that's one of the things that I lead in with the show, as well as, share with a friend and all that good stuff, and colleagues, but be careful at work because, some of the stuff that we kind of get into, I can understand, being in education and all that kind of stuff that, somebody might look down upon maybe some of the things you think of or might not share. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my story really begins in 1997 when I booked a reading with the Trance Channel. And she turned out to be a wonderful woman. As a matter of fact, a few years later, I married her. And we had a very, very productive marriage for quite a few years. We have since split up, but we remain very good friends. And I still see her for psychic readings. It turns out that she channels a spirit who identifies himself as Ramoth. Ramoth is a guide, he says. It took me 20 years to figure out what a guide was. But I now understand that we have what you might call soul families. And in between lives, we go somewhere else, somewhere we can't get to physically. And there we study under a teacher who refers to himself or herself as a guide. This is a soul that has experienced many lives on earth, but is not presently reincarnating, and acts as a teacher. And that kind of like, I think of him as sort of kind of like a guardian angel on the other side.
Right. And so I guess kind of for people, we always kind of hear, the word channeler, or like I was able to channel and stuff like that. But I mean, what you kind of explained a little bit there. You mentioned, when did you kind of realize you were able to channel? Like, how did that whole kind of journey unfold for you? Was that,
I do not consider myself a channel, although I have at times channeled myself. But but my partner in life, Yvonne, is a very honorable channel. The only spirit she channels, as a rule, is Ramoth. And Ramoth himself is very much of the light. He's a very God-oriented spirit. And in fact, when I first went to him, I did question him and made sure that he represented God, that he was of the light. And he has since taught me many things about what our journey on earth is all about, and the fact that we went forth from God, and eventually we will return to God. He began talking about Jesus I think the first time I met with him, and that was very comforting, because I was at the time, I wouldn't say that I was a great doubter, but I had questions. And I don't have those questions anymore, because Ramoth has proven to me time and time again that he's quite legitimate. And I've been able to, I would say, substitute knowledge for what I once held on faith. And I would certainly say that when it changes from faith to knowledge, there's a lot less doubt.
Sure.
It's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, kind of early on when he was revealing himself to you guys, was that a big kind of concern for you, that you weren't being misled? Maybe it's like a demon from the other side, or would you even consider? I mean, I don't know if would that. Are you worried about demons maybe kind of pretending to be on the good side as well?
Yes.
You always hear about that stuff as well.
Yes, and I think that is a legitimate concern.
Right.
In the New Testament, in John's first letter, I'm not talking about the Gospel according to John, but I'm talking about something farther over in the New Testament. John writes 2 letters, and the first one, chapter 4, begins with a test that when you are dealing with inspired speech, which is one way of saying channeled speech, he says question the speaker, and make certain that this is someone who is of God and acknowledges Jesus as the Son of God. And Ramoth very clearly did that, and has always maintained that position during the now it's close to 30 years that I've been his student, and many other people have as well. Have been his students. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and do they? I mean, do you have any kind of contact with those people as well, or is it just kind of that? Yeah.
No. We all of us at one time or other have booked private readings with Ramoth, but for many years, Yvonne also held public meetings that anyone could come to, and That's how I got to know this group of people, and they would come and go over the years. But in about the year 2000, maybe beginning in 1999, Ramoth put together Yvonne, the channel, and four of us who were regular clients of hers formed a group that he called a star group. And we had what you might call private meetings, the five of us, during which he gave us special instruction and also had us doing various projects and so forth. And at one point, he's sent the five of us on a trip to England, which turned out to be sort of like I guess you could call it a vision quest for all of us. We explored past lives that we had together in England, and had a number of deja vu experiences, and spiritual things happened during that time. Very, very, very real. Yeah, very real.
Right. Yeah. One of the other kind of topics that I guess I wouldn't say really into, but I do kind of study like demonologists and a lot of, kind of like exorcism, kind of deals as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with Father Malachi Martin, who was an exorcist out of the Vatican as well, many years back, but follow his work, pretty regularly. Well, he passed away like in the 90s, so it's this point, but I have all his books and read all his work and stuff like that. But I know you mentioned that you battled Satanists and in that kind of aspect as well. What would that entail? Like, how did that whole thing kind of come about, and what does that look like for you guys to actually battle Satanists on that end?
Right. Well, we didn't actually come face to face with the satanic groups. It wasn't a face-to-face showdown. It was a spiritual battle. Ramoth had there were three men and two women in the group, and he had we three men build a box. We called it an ark, sort of like a poor man's version of the Ark of the Covenant. Certainly didn't have any gold in it. It was, as I say, it was a very poor man's version. Excuse me. And with that, we interrupted several satanic rituals that were going on basically in our own backyard, more or less, in where we were in the state of Virginia. We upset one large group of Satanists. This was in, I think it was either in late 1999 or early 2000 that this took place. They were preparing to sacrifice a dog, and we were able to keep that from happening. And apparently a great burst of light happened that frightened these people a good bit, and caused several of them to change their direction in life. And if it caused even one of them to, then I think it was a good day for us. Another time we were able to stop a ceremony that I think involved a different group of Satanists and actually involved kind of a sexual sacrifice of a young woman. And we did keep that from happening. I feel quite convinced that we did. So those were some things we did. They were a little bit abstract, but I have no doubt that they happened. And that we really did upset some people's plans, pretty dark plans.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I mean, I'm assuming just like everywhere, I mean, Satanists, devil worshippers, they run pretty much all over the place. You can probably find sects here and there, but I mean, what's the scene like down by where you're at? Because I mean, we have like a satanic church here Dallas as well, where I'm from originally, from El Paso, which is way West Texas.
Right.
Like right on the border. I mean, there's devil worshiping out in the middle of the desert. There's like churches out there and stuff like that. I mean, is it pretty heavy around where you're at?
I don't hear much about it anymore. It was it seemed to be far more prevalent in the 1990s, and it did look like maybe that it tapered off quite significantly after we got involved in trying to thwart it. And I'm talking about just in my local area. I can't talk about what's going on in other states, but right now, among the people that I live and work among, it appears that all forms of spirituality have slowed down somewhat. I realize that's not true everywhere, but right here in the local area, it has. Yvonne's clientele has slowed down as well.
Right.
But I can't really speak, globally or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, it seems. I mean, it seems like amongst the younger, I guess. Well, I say kids. I'm about to be in my 40s, but the younger groups, 25 and under, there seemed to have been more of like a resurgence of, the younger folks, leaning more towards going back to church and believing in Jesus Christ and stuff like that. That's just kind of what I've seen with my own eyes lately. The younger crowds. So I can only imagine, which is great. But I'm assuming that obviously the devil worshippers and Satanists and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, I would kind of look around at the news or just kind of what's been going on lately in the world that has been kind of spiking. I'm sure more people are being led astray and stuff like that. So
very likely, yes.
Yeah. It's not just locally. It's more. I mean, you never know. You can't really tell what's going on, underground in any given location, stuff like that. But just, what you see based off statistics, crime statistics in areas throughout the country and stuff like that, I can only imagine it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's not looking too good, but at the same time, I'm encouraged, like I mentioned, by the younger groups of kids that are coming up. And, I was reading a study the other day that there's more children kind of growing up. And when I say children, middle school through high school to college, that are, leaning kind of more conservative towards going back to church and, becoming Catholics and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I see, which is great. So I have hope for the future, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's cool, but it's, yeah. So I guess, you mentioned also past lives, and we also kind of touched a little bit about, I've always found it kind of fascinating whether we've all kind of had past lives or not. I mean, do you believe more that we've all kind of really had past lives as well? Is it?
Yes, I do. I believe that's the cosmic plan for us, and Ramoth assures me that this was something that Jesus did. This was knowledge he imparted to all of his apostles and maybe to a broader community as well. It was apparently it was a church decision at some point early on when the church was being organized that the ideas of karma and reincarnation might be a dangerous idea in that it appeared to let people off the hook, and that the population would be more moral if they believed that they had only one shot and they would achieve salvation or eternal damnation. And so that sort of thinking, I believe, took the concept of Christianity or took the concept of reincarnation out of Christianity. But of course, at the time of Christ, it was a debate among among the various Jewish sects. At that time, it wasn't called reincarnation. It was called. Oh no, I'm having a senior moment here.
No worries. Let's see if we can.
Well, it's a very common Christian word. Christ, when he rose from the dead, what's that word we use for that?
Resurrect?
Resurrection, right.
Yeah.
And I'm so
okay.
sorry. That was a senior moment for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's always, I can always remember, I guess, younger, back in the days, that was always kind of like a topic that was discussed, reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. But then somewhere along the line, that just kind of went away. It just wasn't spoken about all too often. I don't really see, I can understand where the church is coming from. They don't want everybody to think, you got multiple shots at this, so you can just kind of screw around with the first life you got, and then you come back and then you kind of start zeroing in on your true purpose. But I can understand, them wanting to be like, hey, you only got one shot, make it count. So, I can understand the thought process between trying to control people and stuff like that. So it makes sense, but I've always felt like, we would come back in the next life or not, reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. I've been a firm believer of it. I don't have any kind of experience or anything to say that it's true or not. And I don't remember any kind of past lives or anything, but I've met people that kind of left me questioning whether if it was true or not. I know people that can remember their past lives, and they explain to me where they were, where they came from, who they were married to, and all these kinds of stories that you hear. So I've heard a bunch of them, and other people are just like, I don't know, I don't, if that's true, I've never remembered anything, and I'm kind of in that same camp as well. But I'd like to think that we've had a few goes at it, and it's not just our last one this time. So
yeah. Well, a session with a hypnotherapist can sometimes bring up past lives if a person is so inclined, if you want to find out. And I would recommend Dr. Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters. He is a psychiatrist who was using hypnotherapy to help a patient who suddenly began talking about past lives. And that this was way back in maybe the 1970s or so. And he has devoted all the time since then to regressing people, finding out that under hypnosis they can remember multiple past lives, quite a few people in traditional medicine, in psychology and psychiatry, are looking into this matter now and are writing some very compelling books. And the things that are coming out are very consistent with what Ramoth has taught me about past lives, karma, reincarnation, so forth.
Right. Yeah, it's always interesting. Kind of when I started out a little bit younger, like I mentioned, I would hear stories about it, and I would always think like, oh, that would be cool. Like if that was true, or maybe when I die, I come back next time as, I don't know, something else. Like you come back as a dog or something, that would kind of be cool, or that would suck as well. But, you don't really know. But then you hear these stories of like 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old little kids that, start remembering when they were an adult somewhere else, and they can recall their lives and all kinds of things. And it's at that point, it's like, well, this kid can't even read probably, and he's remembering all kinds of crazy stories about his past life. So that kind of makes it seem like it could be true, obviously, but it would definitely be crazy to kind of remember things like that. And I've always had this kind of thought of like, yeah, well, we're not meant to remember our past lives, which would be, I guess, that's kind of sad because you would obviously want to know what happened, but at the same time, it's like you got to try and set up a new life at this, this kind of go around as well. But it's always interesting, what that mental block is, why we're not allowed to, to be able to remember if it's true or not. So it's unfortunate.
Well, I believe that we are moving toward a time when there will be a spiritual awakening, and I think people will develop such memories as you're talking about. I think it'll become more common than it is now. I think people will become somewhat more psychic than they are today on the average. And I do know this. I've undergone various hypnotic regressions myself into a number of different lives. And also Ramoth has told me about a number of lives that I've experienced. And knowing about those lives helps me understand my present life, because we're a compilation of all the people that we've been in the past. So if you understand, especially some of your more recent lives, these are lives that probably produce some karma that you're experiencing in this life. Well, it helps you understand why you're interested in the things you are interested in, why you're drawn to the people that you're drawn to, and why you might have an aversion to certain other people. It also explains why you have certain abilities, why you have certain interests, why you take up, the hobbies that you take up, and maybe why you steer clear of certain other things. It's all a matter of the ambitions and the work that you came into this life prepared to do.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that, I guess, when kind of early on in man's kind of existence, that we were more, I guess, in tune with kind of like I wouldn't say, I guess, paranormal or like the unseen worlds, things like that. I guess like over time we kind of lost that connection to be able to, like you mentioned, kind of remember past lives or just kind of be more in tune with, spirituality and all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously nowadays when people hear stories like that, they're just like, oh, that's crazy, or that's just like a story, or you're making stuff up, whatever. But I mean, I've always felt like during man's kind of rise at the very beginning, we were more, kind of in tune with that kind of stuff. What would seem like magic nowadays was just kind of, more common back in those days as well.
Oh, I think you're right about that. I do believe that, in fact, societies that we would consider technologically primitive today may be spiritually more advanced than we are. And in the past, there probably have been times when the average human being was far more spiritually attuned than the average person nowadays is. And I think that probably as you go from society to society, country to country, continent to continent, even in the world today, you might find vast differences in what people know, what they intuit, and but because some people are more open to it, some societies are more open to it, and some are not. For instance, when I wrote my book, Where the Spirit Led, I couldn't find a publisher in the United States, but I readily found a publisher in the United Kingdom, where, if you travel to England and you move around and talk with people there, you'll find that they're far more open to spiritual matters such as hauntings, ghosts, things like that. The average Briton is more open to that than the average American is. It's all a matter of our society, our upbringing, what our parents said to us.
Yeah. I guess kind of in my experience, and I can only base it off of my experience only. I would kind of think that would be I mean, obviously, because of the publishing and all that kind of stuff, it's not more mainstream here, but I mean, like the people, I don't know, I guess it's just maybe the people that I hang out with, we're all kind of on the same boat, when it comes to like paranormal kind of stuff and all these things. I guess I'm in the South, so that's a little different, but just kind of depends, like you said, where you're coming from and how you grew up. But pretty much everybody that I know is just like, yeah, there's ghosts and there's hauntings and there's paranormal stuff, and I guess we're all just kind of like in that crazy boat together, or what would seem like crazy to other people. But yeah, it's being overseas. I got to travel a bit early on in my life, and I didn't see that kind of openness regularly. I guess when you kind of go to the older countries, I guess it's more of a thing. Definitely throughout like Asia, that's more of a thing. They believe in a lot of spirituality kind of stuff. Being in the Middle East as well, the old Middle East, kind of groups of people out there, they believe in a lot of that stuff as well. But I guess more of like on the Western civilization kind of end of the spectrum, it's not too open. It's not too open here, like you mentioned. It just kind of depends, I guess. But it's unfortunate. It's a lot of people have stories about things and they talk about stuff, and you kind of get the sense a lot of people are like, oh, that person's crazy, or they're, like I said, they're making stuff up. But it could be real, and we're just kind of forcing people that actually experience things to not want to say anything or not come forward. It's the same thing that we experience with like the UFO kind of deal. People might be seeing stuff, but they don't want to say anything, for fear of ridicule, and then people making fun of them. So a lot of people that actually have legitimate sightings and things, they just never say anything because, they're just like, why everyone's going to make fun of me? And that's very unfortunate, because that could be happening with a lot of other things as well.
That's true. But I can say with confidence, I've known quite a few people who have had sightings of UFOs. I myself have. I know quite a few people who have seen ghosts. I myself have, as a child, and I think really, if people would listen more carefully to what young children say, the kids are more open to these things. Right. It's after we're being taught that we shouldn't experience these phenomena that we shut off our ability to perceive these phenomena.
Right. Yeah. Children and animals, well, obviously animals can't speak, which, that would be great. But I feel like, cats more than anything, maybe dogs, just kind of are able to tap into some other kind of vibrations that we're not aware of. So I definitely think that animals as well have that sense. But, definitely children, and a lot of people kind of, hear the kids say something, like I mentioned, talking about their past lives and stuff, and like, oh, they're just a kid, they're making stuff up. But yeah, it's definitely worth to listen to. I guess you got to just kind of try to sort out what you think is real and not. But it's always interesting when I hear kids and their stories about that kind of stuff. Doesn't happen too often, but whenever you hear stories about it online or whatever, it's once you dig into it, it gets pretty interesting. So it's definitely something to look into more. Yeah. So one of the, the thing obviously that was a little more compelling as well. So you mentioned in the book that there was a connection between, Mary Magdalene, King Arthur, Christianity, all that. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more on which you were looking at there?
Certainly. I'll give you the short version. Sure. After the crucifixion, at some point, Mary Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea, the man who gave his tomb for Christ's body to be placed in it, they traveled to the British Isles. They were in southern England at the area that's now Glastonbury. ancient city in southern England. There, they taught the people. They brought the Christ story to those people who were rather isolated from the rest of Europe because they were out on an island. And so as Christianity was taking shape on the mainland, there was this story that came straight from Mary Magdalene that people in England were learning. It's a little different because it did have to do with reincarnation and karma, something that was, in mainland Europe, that was being removed from Christ's story. So she had with her the Holy Grail, and it stayed in England. Generations passed. King Arthur, according to Ramoth, was a historical person. He really did exist. There was an uprising, war going on it was a complicated thing. It had to do with people of Celtic origin against people who were Anglo-Saxons. It also had to do with the British form of Christianity. The word I use for that is Christine, that they were Christines rather than Christians, to separate their way of thinking from the church doctrine that came along later. And so this Christine message was also battling with the Druids who were, and various other pagans who were current in England at that time. Arthur actually planned to take an army onto the European mainland, overthrow the Pope, install his own Pope. He also wanted to overthrow Rome, what was left of it at the time. He wanted to install his own king of Rome, who would protect the Pope. And what he wanted to do was reform the Christian church. He wanted to take the ideas of reincarnation. And had he been successful in that, Christianity would be far different today from what it is. But he was not successful, and Camelot fell very quickly, and his plans fell along with that. One thing that Arthur was able to do, though, was to put the Holy Grail in a very safe place where no one has found it, because no one has been meant to find it. I think, though, that the day of discovery is coming. I would certainly think within the next century, the Holy Grail will be found.
Yeah, well, the Holy Grail is a whole nother story. It's hopefully one day. I mean, hopefully around to see it one day. That'd be awesome to see.
Wouldn't that be great? Uh-huh.
Yeah, it'd be one of those things to like, oh wow, I mean, I have no doubt whatsoever in my faith and the fact that it's real or not, but it'd be great to see actually see it before you die. But but then nowadays it's kind of like, can you trust that it's actually real? All these things nowadays, it's like, I don't doubt that they'd create fakes or stuff like that. So it'd be kind of hard to tell nowadays.
Yeah, what you're saying is, if let's say that someone found it, it would be sort of like the Shroud of Turin. Right. There would probably be evidence in one direction, and probably there would be doubters who would also have arguments in the other direction. Yeah, it's the way it is here on Earth.
I've always felt like, that it has been found, or like other religious kind of historical artifacts have been found, and they just kind of like keep them hidden from everybody. It's like that famous scene in Indiana Jones where they just kind of lock it away in that giant warehouse, stuff like that. Especially like under the Vatican and stuff, or some government somewhere has it and they just don't want to show it off to anybody, which is unfortunate. But I've always kind of felt that there's a lot of artifacts from, man's history that are just locked away somewhere, maybe in private collections as well, which is another one, which is unfortunate. But yeah, definitely not to be shown to the public on purpose. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully one day. Yeah. So I guess also, would you be able to speak to, we mentioned kind of in the intro as well, that there was an aspect to, reincarnated poets as well. Could you kind of elaborate on that as well?
Yes. When I first went to Ramoth, it's because I was dating a woman, and I was having a very rough time with her. It was not a satisfying relationship. It wasn't going where I wanted it to go, or it didn't seem to be. And I was very perplexed. And I discovered that, in fact, some of the difficulties in this relationship was that it was a reincarnational relationship. And it went back through several lives. When I was a person similar to what I am now, I went to college, majored in English. Then I went to graduate school, got a Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing. Then I went to another school, got a Master of Arts degree in creative writing. And so I am, by training, I'm actually a poet. I haven't made much of that. I mean, it never seemed like it wasn't something that most people can make a living at, and I was busy making a living, supporting a household most of the time, things of that nature. So publishing never became terribly important to me. But it turns out that this woman that I was in a relationship with had been in relationships with me in past lives. And it just so happened that in several of those past lives, I really was a poet. And strangely, it was the fact that I was a poet that had brought her to me in the first place in this life. Anyway, with Ramoth's help, we were able to not necessarily resolve the issues, but we did resolve the relationship, and we went our separate ways. And I'm sure that we're both happier today that we did go our separate ways. Although I wish her well, and I don't think she wishes me any harm. But I think that a problem that had persisted through several lives actually got resolved in this life, which makes, in my way of thinking, it makes us both successful people in this life, in that something that had been problematic for both of us in prior lives is no longer a problem. And I presume that we will probably not come together in relationships in the future. Or if we do, I hope it's under very different circumstances.
Right. Do you think, kind of speaking to that aspect of it, are we kind of destined to kind of meet up with the same person? When people talk about, your soulmate, do you feel like that's a legitimate thing that, over the centuries, you're just destined to kind of meet up with the same person for whatever reason, whether it be to kind of resolve past lives, like you just mentioned, or to create new ones in the future? Are you kind of just, I wouldn't say stuck, just for the, just for this conversation, I say you're just kind of stuck with the same person over and over and over again. But is that really kind of what you think happens? We're just kind of stuck with the same person over and over?
Yes, it does appear to be the way it works. Not necessarily with the same person over and over, but certainly with the same group of people over and over. And I've come to realize that quite a few of the people I'm related to have been relatives of mine in past lives, sometimes playing different roles, but that we do tend to reincarnate with the same basic group of people over and over. Most of the people that I have been associated with in this life were 100 years ago. They were with me then too, a different country, but essentially the same group of people. And so I think what this means is that we all work with the same guide, that whether those other people know him in this lifetime or not, that Ramoth is he is our spirit guide, and he is our teacher and works with us in between lives, and occasionally affects things during our time on Earth. I think the luckiest day of my life was the day that I walked into that little room, and there was Yvonne waiting to perform a reading for me. It absolutely changed everything in my life, and it changed it all for the better. All for the better.
Yeah, it's the concept of reincarnation is great. The thought of it, you get a second chance, or maybe third, fourth, or fifth chance to kind of redo or kind of get yourself on track for whatever purpose we have outside of this earth. Do you kind of believe as well? I mean, I've always felt that Earth is more of like a prison of sort for souls. We're not meant to be here specifically. We're just kind of being, I guess, kind of groomed for something more outside of here. Maybe we end up somewhere else in another part of the universe, maybe, hopefully. But Earth is just kind of one of those proving grounds, and then we move on from here.
Proving ground is a very good term. It's like a school, and we think that a person dies and that in between lives on Earth you're in some sort of limbo or something, but I believe it would probably be more accurate to say that there is no death, but there's transition between what would you call it, dimensions or spheres or something. But I believe that we're more dead right now, you and I, than we are in between lives, because in between lives, I think we're not buried in flesh. We're not subject to gravity. We're not subject to aging. We are, we're freer. And probably we have far greater insight, because see, right now, living inside a body, we have only 5 senses that we can perceive the universe through. Once we're out of that body, who knows how many senses we have? But certainly we're lighter. We probably don't suffer the infirmities of the body that we suffer while on Earth. For instance, if you don't have bones, you can't break your arm, can you?
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's one of like the greatest, I wouldn't say greatest, but one of kind of things that I think of often, regrets that I have is that I speak to my son about this all the time. He's really into like space and universes and galaxies and stuff. And we always talk about, being able to go see certain galaxies and stuff like that. And one of the things we always talk about is it's a shame that we'll never get to see what's out there. We can't even leave Earth. And that's a huge shame. But when I think about this kind of topic, like, reincarnation and stuff, then maybe we have, like, we've come from another part of the galaxy. We were just reincarnated here, back and forth. And maybe one day when we're gone from here, we'll get to travel through space and see all the kinds of things. But, it's just one of those things that, like, one of the selfish, I guess, kind of traits of being human is that I want it to happen now, like while I'm alive here. I don't want to wait till like transition over to something else and, can't remember it. So it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that as a human here on Earth, we'll never get to see what's out there. But that's
Well,
kind of one of those things.
if you think of it as playing the long game, I think you will
Right.
eventually, and eventually even we learn all of our lessons on Earth, and we won't reincarnate here anymore, but we'll
Right.
probably reincarnate somewhere that that's superior to Earth. Maybe to a place where there are no nuclear weapons, where there is no war, where where the population doesn't appear, essentially to be insane. Because if you look at the history of mankind, we're not a very sane race, are we? We do really, really dumb things to ourselves and to each other. But to live on a higher plane, certainly we would be living closer to God than we do now, probably with less confusion, and quite possibly with the ability to travel through the stars even. I think most of us believe that there are aliens who visit Earth, probably some good and some bad, but some of those very likely are quite like what we might be in the future ourselves when we learn enough earthly lessons to move on to wherever they come from.
Right. Yeah, it's I've often thought about, I would love to do this life that I have over again. There's a few things that I wish I could do over again, but it's obviously I'll never get to be here again. Hopefully not as myself, but as,
Right.
like in this body now, which I would, if I had to choose over again, I'd start over at this exact point in time in this body, in this life, do a few things over again. But do you think we kind of get the opportunity to pick and choose when we're not in our bodies, like where to go, or it's just kind of you're kind of assigned where you should be going to learn the kind of lessons that you need to be learning next? I don't remember where I heard that kind of between lives you kind of get a chance to pick and choose a little bit of where you'd like to go next and the kind of lessons you want to learn next and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it really happens that way.
Well, I do think that simply to be alive is to be a student, and think about it this way: when you were in school, once you got to high school, you had certain options that you could take. You could, certain courses were required, but certain others were electives. And that becomes far more true if you go on through college and so forth. And so I think that while we're working with guides and with teachers on the other side, I believe that the plans that are made for a future life probably is a cooperative effort between you and your teachers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there's like a set kind of criteria or, kind of, I just say curriculum that we're supposed to go through. And then, hopefully along the way, we get to pick and choose a few things here and there. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about for, hopefully down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess, do we always come back as like humans? I'm assuming we don't.
I think we do. I think we do. Ramoth talks about animal souls as being different from human souls. I don't know. They might be more advanced. They could well be.
Yeah.
But apparently their jobs on Earth are different from ours, and but they do reincarnate. I mean, if you had a dog when you were a kid, you have a dog now, could very well be the same dog soul in a different dog body, or it could be that you had a cat and that cat comes back as a dog or as a horse or some other animal within your sphere.
Right.
That they
Yeah,
come
that was
to
a great
help.
movie. Yeah, definitely do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a German Shepherd now running around here.
Right.
But there is a great movie for that, actually. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Came out in like 2017, I think. It's called A Dog's Purpose.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
it's this dog that reincarnates over and over and over again to help the same guy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a great
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Hopefully that's true. I mean, dogs
I-
definitely are all pets really, but mostly dogs, have a great kind of, um, I guess, a path to kind of, help people out or kind of lead people down certain paths or help them out or make it a little easier, make their time here on earth a little easier. So it's always great to have a little
yeah.
companion that you can kind of hang with as well when you need it.
Hmm.
um, yeah. So I guess kind of one of like the last kind of topics we'll touch on here as well. Where do, I guess, aliens kind of come into play as well? As it those, I guess, other reincarnated people, like we're talking about reincarnating in other parts of the galaxy, maybe other group of beings and stuff. Are they us really, or how does that kind of fit, do you think?
Well, I I suppose there are various races of aliens who have visited Earth. The two that I know the most about are the Pleiadians, who are creatures of God, just like you and I are. They're more evolved than we are. They're more angelic than we are,
Hmm.
and they have uh, visited Earth for a long, long time. They're far more advanced than we. But then there are the Greys, which and those are the ones who are those sort of like those little aliens that we think of, with the elongated eyes and so forth. According to Ramoth, they were not created by God. They were somebody's idea of artificial intelligence. There was a race on a planet that created them to be sort of a slave race. But that slave race got out of control, destroyed the people on that planet, and then spread out through the universe. And these are soulless creatures who they don't understand human emotions at all, because emotions all come from the soul. They're very calculating creatures, and I do not think they're visiting Earth presently, but they were, and I was I was bothered by them, and all of the people in my immediate group, in that star group that Ramoth put together, all of us had interaction with them, and it was never pleasant.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely from the stories you hear,
Yeah,
it's never it's never pleasant with any kind of interactions that they have.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, one of the things that I've heard kind of said that, um well, more, one of the scarier things that humankind could experience is the fact is, like, if we were to be visited by anything, just knowing that there's humans out in the universe and they were coming to visit us, that would be more scary than actually seeing, I guess, what you would call like regular extraterrestrials, like aliens and stuff. But I don't know, I've heard a lot of people talk about how, it's maybe us in the future or us in the past, and they come to visit and stuff like that. And um I don't know, I don't think that they are us in any kind of aspect, maybe just different creatures that were created. But it's always interesting to kind of figure out, um, what they are, why they come here, and why we don't have regular interactions with them, and why don't like to kind of show themselves around us. Like I mentioned earlier, this Earth, I feel, is more of like a proving ground, for us to end up somewhere else, and they're
hmm
just maybe watching over us and making sure we don't blow each other up too bad. Uh,
I hope they are watching over us and making sure we don't blow all of us up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would be
It
nice.
seems like that. You hear the stories about, aliens shutting down nuclear bases and all that kind of stuff. So, shooting out, shooting rockets out of the sky and all that kind of stuff. So seems like we're kind of being, they have to step in every once in a while and just like, hey, you guys need to settle down, like, and just get back to being okay with each other. But if that's really the case, they need to do that a lot more often. It doesn't seem like it's working all that well most of the time. We're always blowing each other up on some part of the world, here and there. So obviously we're kind of getting into a little crazier time nowadays. But yeah, I mean, I guess kind of last question for you here as we wind down. I do appreciate your time today. Is there any kind of, I guess, predictions for the future that you get really kind of from Ramoth at all? Is there anything that we should be kind of looking out for or be on edge about in, like in the future, anything along those lines?
Well, the phenomenon that most people refer to in our culture, at least, as the second coming, right. that is not in the great future. That's I think there are people alive today who will experience it in their lifetime. I hope I can live that long.
Right.
But it probably won't be, when he came before, it caught all the religious leaders off guard, and they could not recognize it for what it was. I would not expect people today to be far more insightful than they were 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But I do think a big change is coming. I think it's for the better, and I look forward to it.
Right. And it's speaking about, on that kind of front as well, if anything, we'd like to think that we're, just because we're more advanced and we got technology and all this kind of stuff. But if anything, that I think that's really hindered us a lot more than, the people that lived back in those days. Like we mentioned earlier, they were more in tune with, their spirituality and maybe the spiritual realm and all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, like, people are just stuck to their phones all day and on the computer, and it's more of a handicap. It's more of a crutch than anything. We might be more advanced technologically, but we're not smarter. That's for sure.
No, that's true. And we're not more civilized. We become, we have better stuff. We have indoor toilets and things like that. I think that's a great invention, but that doesn't make us more civilized than people were at various points in the past.
Right. No, definitely not. Yeah, we've kind of gone backwards in many ways. Obviously, this spirituality is one of those things. Being more in tune, kind of with that world and whatever plane of existence that's on. But yeah, hopefully one day we kind of get back to a little more of that. It doesn't look like it. It looks like there's going to have to be some kind of serious, I want to say intervention, but more like another serious event that takes place. God forbid that we kind of get knocked back into the Stone Age and then we start all over again. But that's kind of reset that would have to take place in order for us to kind of get back to there. Because I think we're a little too far gone. There's no way that we can get people to give up all their luxuries and all their comforts in life nowadays to to kind of get back to those ways. But it's unfortunate. So
I don't think it's necessary to give everything up in order to be more spiritual. But what you do need to do is open your mind, and and the universe is trying to talk to us. We just need to open our ears and hear what it has to say.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. We definitely keep striving to be better every day. So hopefully everybody kind of takes up that same path, and we're all kind of in the same boat together. But you can only do so much. You can only kind of pull your weight, maybe drag somebody along with you here and there. family members or whoever you're around, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So it's unfortunate.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, Mr. Burkholder, as we wind down here, I do appreciate your time. Like I mentioned,
Okay. I'd like
there,
to. I'd like to make one last appeal.
yes.
I'm here because of this book, Where the Spirit Led, which is for sale in bookstores and through Amazon. And my name, again, is Brad Burkholder.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I was also going to ask you, is there anywhere that people can follow your work? Do you have like a website?
I do have a
Instagram?
website. Pretty easy to find. It's bradburkholder.com.
bradburkholder.com. Okay. So we can put that up as well on the show notes for everybody as well. So they can, and you also sell the book off of the website as well?
No, I'm not selling it there, but it's readily available through Amazon if local bookstores don't have it. But it is also distributed through bookstores. Okay,
great. Yeah, so we can do that. So I'll link the website as well in the show notes down below when this gets redistributed as well, as well as links to the book directly through Amazon as well. So that'll be down there.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
So we can do that. Absolutely, Mr. Burkholder. I do appreciate your time, like I mentioned. It was a great conversation. It's a very interesting topic that I'm very interested in as well. So it's anything to do with kind of reincarnation, all that kind of stuff. I'm always, excited to kind of read up on things. So I do believe in actually supporting people that I'm, interested in as well. So I do have a copy of the book as well, sitting on my desk over here somewhere. So I did actually purchase the book and read through it as well. So I actually got to finish reading it, but it's a great book so far. So I do encourage people to actually pick up the book as well and go ahead and give that a read. Very interesting stuff. So like I mentioned, appreciate the time. Have a great rest of your week. And thank you for jumping on with us.
Thank you so much. Pleasure has been mine.
Sir. Absolutely. Appreciate it very much. And there we go. All right, folks. Appreciate everybody stopping in on a Thursday evening, getting ready for the weekend. So I hope everybody's got some great plans going on. Nothing but work. So back to work tomorrow for everybody as well. We had a holiday today, right? Juneteenth or something like that. It was kind of a weird thing driving into work, and there was no traffic really to speak of on the freeway. I work pretty far from my house, so it takes me about an hour to get there, and I was there in like half an hour, so I got to work early, which was very sad. But it's all good. So yeah, Burkholder, bradburkholder.com for everybody to pick up the book. We'll have links. I guess it doesn't have any kind of social media. That's fine. Links to the book itself and the website in the show notes as well for anybody that wants to pick that up. As always, if you guys are on the go, want to check us out, you can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music at Truth Defender Podcast. If you guys love what we do here, please consider sharing the show with a friend, family member, or colleague, all that good stuff. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button. A lot of the people that actually stop in for the show aren't actually subscribed. That'll really help us out as well with trying to pick up guests in the future. Like I mentioned before, guests actually take a look at, subscription counts and all that kind of stuff when determining whether they want to actually come on the show or not. So if they see that we got a nice little following there, they'd be more willing to jump on with us. So if you are really interested in the guests, we kind of pick up and we kind of sit on the fringe of stuff with the guests that we actually book. So yeah, hit that subscribe button. They see that we got a little following, like I said, they'll be more willing to come on the show and share their stories and all that stuff. So please consider that as well. Hit the bell icon. You guys don't miss a show in the future. Hit that like button as well. Helps us out a lot. Questions for myself or I guess and topic recommendations, you can email us at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. All the links, social media down below as well. Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, Kick. The link tree is going to be down there as well, so you guys can take a look at all that. I hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back again next week. Still putting down a time, trying to get our next guest to commit. So we'll see what happens there, but I'll keep you guys posted as well. So appreciate everybody's time. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves out there, and always remember God, family, Texas. Good night, y'all.